Okay guys, this is the next design. What I please want to point out to you guys is that we've got a white snowflake, and then we've got our normal sugar in with our glitter acrylic mixture. But over here we've also incorporated, so that the design is cohesive, sorry for that, so that the design is cohesive, we've got these chromed little bauble dots. Okay, so for this design what we are going to need is our gel paints. So we're going to need our prepped nail tip. Okay, this is 2 coats of the purple. They've been cured for 60 seconds each. Top coat in matte, cured for 60 seconds. There is no sticky layer. It is nice and smooth. Like I said, you can always use alcohol and you can come through. That's a nice isopropyl alcohol, 70% or higher, and then you would just clean off your surface, right? Remember that with the sugar in, if there's anything sticky, it's going to stick onto that. Okay, so into the design, the first aspect that we are going to work with is the snowflake. So I have used the Tickle Pink gel paint. It is this one over here. The reason I've used this as opposed to the Young Nails Fizz is because I find that this paint is thicker in consistency. So I prefer it for that. I'm going to also use a smaller portion or a smaller part of my dotting tool as opposed to this big part, right? So I'm going to pick up my white paint on the ball of the dotting tool. I'm going to come slightly off the nail, which would be here, and I'm going to make a dot, right? I'm then going to do 4 more dots, so 1 directly above. Try and space them out as evenly as possible. It's not always that simple. It looks super simple. Try to make sure that the dots are the same size. So I'm going to pick up just a little bit more of my product. I'm going to come in my dot there and my dot there. Okay, the moment we start overthinking this, that is the point where it becomes quite challenging, right? So on a very fine liner brush, I've just primed my brush with a touch of paint. So I want to show you that there is the brush, okay, but there isn't a large amount of paint on this. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the wet paint or the wet dots, and we are going to pull through from the center, pull through a line down. Then we're going to come to the opposite side, or pardon me, alternate side, pull through there. Remember, your client can turn her hand to accommodate for this. Pull through there, and here we are going to pull through a nice thin even line. Okay, at this stage we are going to go in between and we are going to make slightly shorter lines. Okay, so we pull through a line over there, we pull through over here, in line with that, almost as though it's the same line going through that circle, so that we get good symmetry. And over here. So we did not add any extra product onto our brush. We literally just used what was in the dots. Now I'm going to very lightly load my brush with a very small amount of product. So there's barely anything on my brush. It's nice and even. You can see it's not bulky at all. Okay, and here I'm going to start pulling out the diagonal spikes. So there we go. Then on the opposite side. Okay, I'm going to turn my hand, very gently load a little bit of product onto my brush. I always twist my brush in the paint as I'm loading. And I want very thin lines. So a snowflake is very delicate. Okay, we lose it if the lines are too thick and too bulky. We want to try as best as possible to keep an even amount of space, but please keep in mind that this is hand painted. It's not computer generated, so it's not going to be 100% perfect, and that is okay. Okay, on the opposite side. Okay, at this stage, I'm going to use this tiny brush here, and I'm going to pick up paint on the very end of my brush, like a small ball. And then I'm going to dot. Those ends. Right, now we will move on to our sugaring. Okay, so I'm using the glitter and acrylic mix. I'm pouring it on, making sure to get every single part of it, and then allow it to sit for a few seconds so that the paint absorbs. Right, we're allowing it to sit for a few seconds, and now I will dust it off, and this will cure for 30 seconds just to flash cure it. Right, we're going to get our dotting tool ready. We're going to segue back to our purple paint. Just want to put my white paint aside. I had it on the end of my spatula there. Okay, back to our purple paint. As you'll see, I've got it there. And we are now going to create the dots and the hearts. So we are going to create these dots over here. Okay, and that heart. We're not doing this just yet. Okay. So these can be different size dots. Just to give it more dimension, I'm going to dust off the excess. And you can see how beautiful that is. A nice sparkly snowflake. Right, moving on. So, fairly simple, small part of my dotting tool. You can see where exactly you want to place a dot. I want to place a dot there, so it's wet. Okay, now there I got a streak. So because I got a streak, when I sugar, it's literally going to catch onto that streak, which means that I've got to clean that one up. Okay, so I'm going to wipe off a little bit of acetone or alcohol, clean brush, wipe that off, allow it to evaporate, and we're going to apply a small dot there. We can apply a slightly larger dot there, going over it just to make it larger. Okay, I've got another dot over here, and now we're going to do our heart. So I go over to the larger side of my dotting tool, and I'm going to proportion my heart 1, 2 dots. I'm happy with that. Going in with my clean brush, thin liner brush, and I'm pulling that product out again. Triangle at the bottom over there. Pulling all that extra product down to the bottom. Remember, you can get quite creative with your hearts. It doesn't have to be exactly straight. I'm coming in with my dotting tool again because I want to define the top of that heart. It's blurring slightly, so I'm going, and I haven't picked up any extra product. I'm just using what is already there. Okay. And I'm literally tapping there to get it nice and rounded. Coming back in with my brush, and I'm just filling that gap in. Okay, and now we can sugar. So again, my acrylic mix, generously poured over all of that wet gel. Allow it to sit for a bit. Tap off that excess. We can go in for a second round. Tap off that excess and cure for 30 seconds. Okay, for this next portion, what we are going to use is our chrome powder, which is this over here. So beautiful. Okay, you can use your finger with a glove because there won't be any oils. I wouldn't recommend using just your bare finger because there are oils on our fingertips. You can use a silicone tool, pardon me, you can use a makeup sponge. It's completely up to you. Okay, for the next portion. So here, I'm going to dust off the excess. Okay, let's get off that excess product over there. There we go. We're going to take our dotting tool with our purple mixture of paint that we had done in the first tutorial, where it's a little bit of the white and it's the purple background paint, and we just created a lighter paint. So I'm going to do this slightly differently for the sake of keeping symmetry. And I'm going to do a larger dot there. And I'm going to flip over and I'm going to do a tinier dot there. Okay, now we cure that for 30 seconds. And then we will do this pigment rub, right? And then we will be getting our no wipe top coat ready with a clean brush. So something that's really super tiny, just so that you can pick up the product and basically seal in the chrome powder. So I'm going to use this brush. If I move my hand, let's see, there we go. We can see it a bit better. Okay, so having that on hand, right, it's cured for 30 seconds. I'm going to pick up my chrome powder and I'm going to rub it generously. So that sticky inhibition layer is going to help to keep this onto that little dot that we've created. Depending on how strong your lamp is, we could run into it not curing properly, so just be careful of that. I'm going to take this part of a makeup sponge and I'm just going to rub over this. Don't worry about the excess, we can clean that off later. But I'm basically just pressing the pigment in, just stick onto that paint. Okay, now we need to take our no wipe top coat. I'm just going to decant some onto my palette, and then I'm going to pick up a little ball on the end of my brush and I'm going to place it on there, on that dot, there on that dot, and very quickly go into the lamp for it to do a full 60-second cure. The reason you want to be quick with that is because if you take your time, the gel is going to go from there, and with gravity it's just going to go all the way down, and then it's going to mess onto the rest of your matte background, which is not what we want. So you've got to have your stuff ready so that you can be quicker with doing that. Okay, so this was the original nail in the promo that was done. It's got different textures, so it's got a beautiful matte background. We've got sugaring with our snowflake and with our dots and heart, and then we've got our teardrop, or not teardrop, but our ball, chromed baubles. I don't know what else to call them, but yes, they're nice and round and cute. So remember, you can use these techniques with any type of design. Okay, it's literally about learning the art technique and knowing what product to use when. So I'm just waiting for it. There we go. It's done. Okay, so now we can take, you can see we've got all of that extra chrome powder. So this is where we would take our alcohol. Just going to pop that down there. We can spritz it onto our brush. Okay, and now we can remove all of that excess chrome powder. We're going to allow that to evaporate so that I can show you. Look at how beautiful that reflects. So you've got gorgeous texture going on with this nail. Okay guys, that one's done. For our next design, we will be moving on to a slightly more complicated one, which is this.